Just when the entire world wanted to leave OKC for dead, they reminded us that they're the defending champions for a reason, taking down San Antonio in Game 5. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline, all the talk for 24 hours was, San Antonio figured them out. They've got the turnover thing figured out. It's all fine. Watch this. Wemby's going to dominate. And then what did we get last night? I'm not sure 127-114 does justice to how in control he was throughout the entirety of this game. They take down the Thunder. Wemby looks like a shell of himself, and suddenly OKC is one game away from really pissing off the entire NBA world and going back to the NBA Finals.
I would just like to say that we did point this out on the show yesterday, that if you're overreacting to just one result, you haven't been paying attention to this series. What did we say yesterday? When this series ebbs, it flows. When it zigs, it zags. We can see San Antonio on the mountaintop at the absolute peak of the basketball world. And then what do? They plummet right back down to the depths of the basketball world. But this has just been the nature of this series. The peaks and the valleys that we see one team make adjustments from game to game, and then the other team make adjustments from game to game. That we saw San Antonio not turn the ball over as high of a clip as they had previously. We saw San Antonio keep Oklahoma City's shooting in check in Game 4. We saw Wemby go absolutely off and get production from the top to the bottom of the lineup. And then what did we see yesterday? Oklahoma City's shooting is right back where it was previously that we're accustomed to. We see Oklahoma City shoot 32, but make 14 threes. We see Oklahoma City's bench pop off. Alex Caruso for 22 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looking every single bit of the MVP that we're accustomed to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looking like. We're seeing Isaiah Hartenstein keep Victor Wembanyama in check. We see this checklist when we see it, and I think it's very, very obvious and very apparent of both of these two teams. They have a little checklist of things that they have to do in order to win basketball games. And for the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's SGA looking like MVP SGA. It's getting production from the bench, and it is keeping Victor Wembanyama in check. They checked all of those boxes last night, and if the Oklahoma City Thunder play the brand of basketball that they played last night, lights out defensively. They are just poetry in motion at times on the court. When they are clicking on and everything's hitting on all cylinders, I don't know who is beating this Thunder team, Fitzy. But remember, we don't overreact to just one result because we haven't seen this Thunder squad down J-Dub and down AJ Mitchell playing to their ceiling like we saw them play last night.
Well, and that's part of why, even as we look at Wemby, who, as you mentioned, in the last game was so superhuman, everybody said, oh my God. Now all of a sudden, every TV show I watched this morning is telling me, he's fatigued. He's not prepared for the grind of his series. You can see his body wearing down. He had a bad night. And Chet Holmgren didn't. And Hartenstein didn't, right? So Wemby had a bad night. Yeah. Now what do we make of it? And to me, that's the hard part about this is I think in this series particularly, we got to stop looking at each of these games like a statement, and we got to start looking at each of these games more like an inning in a baseball game. You just got to survive some of them. Sometimes you have a bad inning, and you just got to let it go. I think San Antonio had a bad night. I do think Wemby looked lethargic last night. 4 for 15 from the field. You see it right there. I do think that from the outset, he didn't have that same level of energy. Now, does that mean that all hope is lost for Wemby and the Spurs? No, it just means that he had a bad night. And I realize that we want to turn that into a massive statement. But if we do that, we're doing the exact same thing we did just a couple of days ago, we being many people that cover the sport, when we figured that, now San Antonio's got it under control. The fact is, when you are as good as both of these teams are, this is what you get. You get a punch and you get a counter punch. This is what you get. You get some nights you've got energy, and that little extra 1% is the reason that you rise above. Some nights you don't. Last night was a bad night for a lot of different players in the Spurs, and you can feel it from the outset. You've talked about SGA, and I think it's important to note how big his box score is. But early in the game, SGA was quiet. Early in the game, it was Chet Holmgren that hit a couple of big baskets that was keeping him in. Early in the game, though, what did San Antonio do? Turn the ball over. They turned the ball over a bunch. And all of a sudden, I just sat there. I sat there loudly screaming to my dogs on the couch, I told you so. You don't just solve the turnover issue. You don't suddenly wake up one day and you're like, aha, now we won't turn the ball over anymore. We figured it out. That's what OKC really likes to do. Like, that's not a revelation. OKC got back to turning the ball over. San Antonio didn't have an answer. Once OKC was up, it took every ounce of everything that San Antonio had to try and battle back over and over and over again. And every time they did, OKC had a response to that because this is OKC. Like, I get the world doesn't love to watch the Thunder play basketball, I guess. But to me, I watched last night and I was like, yep, this is exactly who the Thunder are. Does it mean that the Thunder are going to win Game 6 and go just cascading into the NBA Finals with no issues? No. But I think what OKC reminded us last night is that they know how to stay calm in these moments. They know how to be themselves in these moments. They know how to maximize these moments. Yes, Wemby didn't play well, but also OKC's defense was back to being the sticky defense that got them to where they are right now.
I'm so glad you bring that up because it's so true that OKC, I feel like better than any other team in the NBA, can get smacked in the mouth and bounce back and still look like one of the best basketball teams in the world. So, whether that's injury. Yeah, I just mentioned AJ Mitchell and J-Dub. Those two players are out, and we've seen this Thunder team have to weather the storm without SGA at times in the regular season, yet they still find ways to win. They can get smacked in the mouth and being down early in a game and nobody panics because everybody buys into what they have in this process. This process that just looks and feels so flawless and smooth. I oftentimes try and check myself with confirmation biases in life, but also, of course, in sports. And I have this bias, this thought that San Antonio is so young and is so inexperienced, and they are getting their first taste of Western Conference Finals and being on the biggest stage in basketball, that they've almost skipped these steps. That I do feel like sometimes, I really not sometimes, all the time, I wholeheartedly believe in knocking on the door of a championship before you finally and ultimately break through. Because there are just trials and tribulations of postseason basketball that you have to learn from before you can win a championship, before you can break through the OKCs of the world, and before you can break through the Knicks and the way that they're playing and have been playing in the postseason. So I have wondered to myself, is this just a confirmation bias that I have about this Spurs team, that some of these mistakes that they're making really are due to just the Oklahoma City Thunder being that good and not due to this Spurs team just being really young? But Fitz, when I tried to check myself, and of course, yes, part of it is OKC, the buzzsaw that they are, the defense that they've played, the secret sauce that it feels like they figured out in keeping Victor Wembanyama in check and being able to create offense in spite of him. I also do think part of that, though, is more than just my confirmation bias. It is the fact that this Spurs team is young and inexperienced and getting their first experience in the Western Conference Finals. Because the storms that it feels like we are confident in OKC weathering, I think San Antonio is figuring that out. That I don't know if San Antonio can beat the Thunder. I don't think they can beat the Thunder if Victor Wembanyama is not playing as close to his ceiling as OKC will let him play. I don't know how much the Spurs can really overcome the injuries that they've suffered in this series against OKC, and a physical and bruising and a grind of a series against OKC. I think they're still figuring it out. That's not to say that I don't think San Antonio can come thundering back and make important adjustments and win Game 6. I absolutely do think that's in the realm of possibility. But I think last night, the youth and the inexperience that this team has kind of reared its ugly head.
But my answer to that is always OKC's young too. Like, I know OKC doesn't have the inexperience.
But they're not inexperienced.
Right, but
they won a championship
OKC,
together last year.
As a young team. I mean, like, if we want to take the average age of these two rosters are wildly similar this year. It's about 9 months difference between the average age between these two rosters. But even if we go back and look at last year, an inexperienced young Oklahoma City team won the championship. Like, so I hear the age, but I think what we're seeing right now is younger and younger teams in the NBA having tremendous success. Yes, there is a difference. Alex Caruso's not young, right? Having an Alex Caruso that I think is 31 or 32 off the top of my head come in. There is a
32.
key moment there. Where you have a vet come in at 32 years old that definitely has played a lot of basketball. There's a presence to that, and you're right. This is a young San Antonio team, but I keep hearing that narrative, and I keep thinking to myself, well, the Oklahoma City team was almost as young last year and won the NBA championship. So, like, it kind of ruins the bell curve on youth being part of this conversation to me.
It's fair, but also SGA was 25 when they won a championship. Wemby's 22. Wemby's in year 3 in the NBA. I do think that has to matter. I mean, how many years of service did SGA have under his belt last year? I don't know off the top of my head. More than 3. OKC was young, absolutely. And I think that kind of broke the mold of what is possible for young teams. But also, San Antonio is younger. This is Wemby's first postseason. So it's not just the age and the youth, although that is part of it. 25 was young for SGA to be a league MVP and a finals MVP and an NBA champion. Wemby's even younger and even less experienced.
Yeah, that is very fair. That this is part of the growing process for San Antonio. I don't disagree with that. I think that there's a calm and there's a strange calm to Oklahoma City, even when they won the championship last year. Some guys are just wired to handle pressure incredibly well, and we saw some of that. This series is going to give us everything. You and I both felt like it was going to go 6 or 7 games. It's obviously going to go 6. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7. So far, we've done a great job of not overreacting to the outcome. There's still plenty of basketball left between these two teams while the Knicks kick their feet up and just relax, get a little bit of time in the spa, and await the winner. We did have some other NBA. Oh, go ahead, Caroline.
One thing that I wanted to point out, one last little note on this, because I know it is going to be circulated on social media and everyone's going to be going crazy. Is it bad for the game that SGA went to the line 17 times last night?
I don't think so. I mean, like Wemby went to the line. Well, Wemby only shot 12 free throws. So, yeah. Is it bad for the game? No. I continue to say my answer to this has always been he's not breaking any rules. And if the rules exist and he's using the rules, like I realize people have created this narrative around flopping, but I don't have a hard time with it. Do you?
I don't. I think I'm more tired of the whining about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think I'm more tired of everyone just pointing to that being the reason why OKC is the juggernaut that they are, instead of looking at the fact that they are, in fact, a juggernaut.
100%. And when we talk about whining, I'm also tired of whining about coaches. But we do have some big coaching news. Coach of the Year has been awarded in the NBA, and it goes to Joe Mazzulla, the coach of the Boston Celtics. Caroline, I think you and I both agree that this award is very deserved based on the season that the Celtics had.
Yeah.
But the timing on this feels horrific.
We were talking about this in the regular season, that it should have been Joe Mazzulla. Go ahead and put your votes in and, give him his Coach of the Year trophy with a shiny little bow. Because the Celtics had zero expectations this season. You lose Jason Tatum, you lose your franchise cornerstone for the season, and you get your team to looking like a championship contender, and Jalen Brown looks like an MVP caliber player. Like, yes, Joe Mazzulla absolutely deserved this award. It feels gross and it feels icky that Joe Mazzulla is getting this award and he's not coaching right now and hasn't been coaching for quite some time. The Celtics had an early exit in the playoffs partly because Joe Mazzulla refused to adjust their game plans and still continued to want to chuck threes up at, chuck up 53s a game. And that clearly was a massive reason why the Celtics got totally and completely embarrassed by the Philadelphia 76ers when we all thought that they were going to walk to the NBA Finals. So if you want this to be a regular season award, make it a regular season award and award it after the regular season. Because I'm looking at Mike Brown and thinking, I think that might be the most masterful coaching job that we have seen in the postseason, but that's not the award that it is. So the timing just feels very strange for all of this.
If you have to stop and explain over and over and over, if you're a comic and you stand up and you tell a joke, nobody laughs, but then you have to explain it, the joke didn't land, right? Like if you're at a restaurant, somebody brings out the food and they can't tell what it is, you have to explain it, the food probably didn't land. If we do segments on sports talk radio, sports talk television, and nobody knows what we're talking about, the segment probably didn't land. If you have an award that has to constantly be reminded to the world that the postseason doesn't count in it because of when it's given out, probably need to look at your timing. In an app world, tell me why the NBA doesn't have an app where all the voters have to put their votes in by the last day of the regular season, and then 2 days later, they announce it. That's it. Just announce it right away. Get it out to the world right away. Because, yes, Joe Mazzulla is wildly deserving of being the coach of the year for what the Celtics did in the regular season. But you're right, Caroline, to hand it out now and then have to remind people that the postseason wasn't factored in. Well, then why did we have to wait so damn long to tell everybody who won the award? Figure out your technology, figure out your tabulation process, figure out a way to give out these honors immediately after the regular season. Reward the people that deserve it without having to have caveats around it and explainers around it that make the award feel less than, the people that won it feel less than, and all of us feel dumb when we're trying to figure out how to explain why the award doesn't include anything we saw in the postseason. This is just a fail every year by the NBA. It's an easy thing to get right. Adam Silver, get it right. All right. Joe Mazzulla, congratulations, by the way. Should say that loudly. Congratulations to the coach of the year. Coming up next, we're going to give congratulations out to Jalen Brunson. Is he about to be a legend like we've never seen before? We'll tell you.
Are there any teams that come to mind, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Sacramento, or anybody else that you think has good incentive to try to move up in the draft?
If there was a team that I was looking at that had an asset, it's Milwaukee at 10 that might use Giannis to, for example, maybe try to get that fifth pick from the Clippers. That's the only team that I'm looking at right now that I say, okay, I think they've got the juice.
This is a team that is also doing it without some signature players in their rotation. Hunter Green, we have not seen him, but what Terry Francona and his staff are putting together right now, Sal Stewart is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Ellie De La Cruz is an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I think that the Cincinnati Reds are a team that has some staying power in what is a very interesting and potentially compelling National League Central.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadari Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Right across the street from where the Giants and the Jets play, we've got professional football indoor. The run-up in the left-footed kick is on the ground and picked up by an up man for the Rattlers. It's Ronnie Brown. Brown out across midfield and a great run down the boards to the end zone. Touchdown, Brown! What a start in the IFL Cup! Huge high hop, and he just absolutely had a nose for the end zone down the wall.
If Jalen Brunson wins New York a championship, he's going to be bigger in the city than Derek Jeter. I got to say this loudly, Caroline. I think if Jalen Brunson leads the Knicks to a championship this season, he becomes the most beloved New York athlete of all time. And to me, it's not just because it's the Knicks. It's not just because Brunson has family. It's not just because of his history. It's not just because of his personality. It's all of it together, combined in a city that cares so much about basketball. To me, it's so abundantly clear. As many legends as there are in New York sports history, if Jalen Brunson this year takes down the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder or takes down the alien in Wemby and wins a title for the Knicks, he becomes the most beloved New York athlete of all time.
Of all time? Of all time. More than Derek Jeter, more than Patrick Ewing, more than Dr. J, more than Eli Manning, more than those athletes. I mean, if you even want to go all the way back to the beginning of time, even with some of the most beloved New York athletes, like more than Babe Ruth, of all time is a little tough for me to say today right now. That feels to me like it is maybe an overreaction or maybe recency bias. If you win a championship in New York, I think that automatically catapults you into greatest of all time territory. I think that automatically catapults you into you are never buying a meal in New York City ever again. But and look, Jalen Brunson would be doing it, would be breaking this drought that has existed for the last 50 years in New York. That Knicks fans are so starved, even just for greatness. And that is clear and obvious by all of the parties in the streets that happen, even when the Knicks just win one playoff series, much less get to the NBA Finals, much less get to the NBA Finals for the first time in almost 30 years. But I do feel like being the most beloved athlete of all time has to stand the test of time. That I think we will still be talking about Jalen Brunson and what he means to the city of New York 30 years from now if he does win a championship. But I can't say that if he wins a championship, I can't say that all of a sudden he would be the most beloved all time. Would he be the most beloved athlete in New York right now? Probably. Aaron Judge might like to have a word here. I think he would maybe beat out Cam Scadaboo, probably, in that race of most beloved athlete in New York right now. But of all time, I can't quite go there.
I think for me, when you talk about somebody that his dad played with the team that hasn't made the finals since 1999, in a city that cares more about basketball, I think, than any of the other major cities in the United States. And you talk about somebody that chose to come to the New York Knicks, chose this responsibility, and from day one has been steadfast in that, and is just single-handedly clutch moment after clutch moment in the Garden, leading his team to this. Like when we talk about the most beloved Yankees, we could sit down at a sports bar today and have an argument about which Yankees over the last 30 years belong on the Mount Rushmore. If we want to have an argument about which Knicks players belong on the Mount Rushmore over the last 30 years, what's that argument look like? So that speaks to how many great Yankees there have been. Testament to Derek Jeter. Yes, testament to everybody around the Yankees organization during an entire era, right? Yankees consistently are within the reach of championships. It's part of the expectation. The Knicks aren't that. And I'm looking at the way you mentioned Patrick Ewing. You know what Patrick Ewing never did? Never won that chip. He never got over the top. He never took down Michael. It was never Patrick Ewing's league. It just never was. But Patrick Ewing still sits on the sidelines as a legend, as he should. Larry Johnson, as much as, I've got a signed Larry Johnson in my office, a jersey in my office. As much of a legend as Larry Johnson is, he didn't win that championship. He didn't do the improbable. He didn't do the unthinkable. He didn't create mob-like scenes in the streets after games. He didn't create police presence just trying to manage the fans after an Eastern Conference final win. My God, what will it look like? When you talk about Knicks fans flying from all over the country, all over the world to take over Cleveland, what will a finals matchup look like if the Knicks have a shot at winning it? The star power, the regular people. They had to shut down one of the private airports in Cleveland and start sending flights elsewhere because too many private jets were coming from New York to watch the Knicks win the East, right? Like you think about that. And it just tells you about the stars that will flock to it. It tells you about the way the people in the streets will celebrate it. It tells you about something that means so much to a generation that hasn't seen a championship. It's a generation. There's a whole living. If you're my age, you've never seen the Knicks win a championship. You've only heard about it. If you're my age, you've seen championships for the Yankees. You've seen giant Super Bowls. If you're a Knicks fan, the most important, I would argue, entire brand in that city is the New York Knicks. And they haven't done the unthinkable. If they do the unthinkable and they take down the defending champs to do it, or they take down Wemby to do it, yeah, just start building the statue now. My God, the man becomes a legend overnight. And I think because of those reasons, it becomes the biggest legend we've ever seen in the big city.
I mean, of course, we know how much basketball means to New York. New York basketball, just the basketball culture, not just the Knicks, but the New York basketball culture from the time that you grow up in the streets of Brooklyn and Manhattan or wherever you may grow up. It's special. It's different. I mean, there's public courts all throughout the city. It's a city that is so, that has so many parts of its DNA, and I think basketball is one of them. Just sports in general is one of them. So to have one of their own, the New York Knicks, competing for a championship, it's special. I mean, it's Ben Stiller, it's Timothy Chalamet, it's Fat Joe, it's insert whoever, whatever superstars you want here, Tracy Morgan, Tina Fey, Kylie Jenner. And we know what New York basketball means. But I think I just have a hard time thinking that the star in New York, to your argument, the most beloved athlete in the history of New York City. We're talking about New York City, one of the most important cities in the world. You're the most beloved athlete in the history of that city, and you're not even like a top 5 star in the NBA right now. And look, I love Jalen Brunson. I love him. I've fallen in love with this Knicks team. I have so many friends and family members that are Knicks fans or live in New York and have become intoxicated by this Knicks run. This is not an anti-Knicks sentiment. But if you were to ask me, who are the biggest stars in the NBA right now? How many would we have to list before we get to Jalen Brunson? How can you be the most beloved athlete in the history of one of the largest cities in the world, and you're not even the biggest star right now in your respective league?
I think that only fuels the fire, because to me, all I've ever heard my entire life is everybody wants to play in New York because, my God, if you win a championship for the Knicks, you immediately become legend. That's the argument that has been made when I was at ESPN and now at Yahoo for my entire sports broadcasting
believe
career.
that.
I was there. Oh my God. Well, now think about it. Now you've got a guy that goes out and wins, and immediately, even in a win, Knicks fans will feel like their guy is being disrespected. Knicks fans will feel like their guy belongs as the number one superstar because he led. The Stephen A. Smiths of the world are going to scream into a microphone that Jalen Brunson doesn't get enough credit if he wins a championship. And maybe it's because he doesn't look like Wemby. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's because he doesn't have that same. Maybe it's because he's not the same big personality that we see from somebody like Ant, right? Like, he isn't that guy. He doesn't want, even in winning the East, when he was asked about what it meant because of his family and because of his ties to the organization, his answer essentially was, couldn't have done it without my teammates. Like, he's such a team-first guy that doesn't seem to crave that level of superstardom. But that will fuel the fire within the city, where within the city limits, they'll say, even when we win a championship, they don't respect us enough. That only makes him a bigger legend in New York.
Look, I think it could. I definitely think it could, because it is very much so a New York or nowhere, New York against everyone kind of mentality. But, and look, to your point, it is maybe, I don't think it's the size thing. Look, Wemby is in a different stratosphere, in a different category, because he's just an alien. I don't think it's the size thing. Like, I don't look up someone's height and weight and think, okay, I think this guy's a better basketball player because he's 6'6" versus a 6'2" Jalen Brunson. I do think it is partly a personality thing, especially in a league that is so personality driven. The LeBrons, the Ants, to your, for that example. I mean, the fact that I think Jokic has kind of is beloved because he doesn't want to be that kind of big time personality. That everyone kind of loves that he is such a contrarian and so anti everything that we, believe it makes a superstar in the NBA. But Jalen Brunson isn't any of that. He's not a contrarian. He's not a big time personality. He is so gracious, and he is, he's not going to be the kind of person that commands all of the attention or commands all of the credit for his team. Maybe that is part of it, that he doesn't have maybe the same marketable personality that we see throughout the rest of the league. But I think the point remains that if you do win a championship, especially if it is against the reigning champion Oklahoma City Thunder or a Victor Wembanyama, that does put you in a different stratosphere, not just in New York, but in the basketball world as a whole.
Yeah, in New York, just a reminder, the get-in price for nosebleed seats for Game 3 right now are starting at $3,800 a seat. For Game 6, that's already over $5,000 a seat. That city is going to be electric no matter who they play. Speaking of electric, we'll keep the electric energy coming on this show. Coming up next, breaking down some of the biggest news in college football. Lucy Rohden going to join us. Can't wait.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much, and I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that, and I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time. When it's all said and done, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's that like for you as a weapon to see different coaches come in and figure out how to best utilize those weapons? What's that been like for you?
It's been great, just working for guys like that now under Matt. They're just guys that you want to play for. You get to see how all of these great minds think. It's allowing me to learn. It's keeping me on my toes and allowing me to just develop as a football player mentally.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
I think the real reason we love SEC Media Days is we get quotes from coaches. Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz. If you put 24 teams or 12 teams in a playoff, I'm not sure the best team always wins it. Team that gets hotter has the best matchup. I would argue that's kind of the case in every sport, but we're going to react to that. And all things college football with CFB college football content creator, on-campus storyteller, one of the breakout personalities in college sports media, Lucy Rohden. Lucy, really appreciate your time. What do you make of Eli? I hear this argument a lot, the best team isn't going to win it. What do you say to that?
Welcome to sports. I don't know what to tell you. This is how all playoffs work in all sports. That's just the nature of being, an athlete is you get hot, you don't get hot. I don't know what Drink is talking about, man. Sometimes he just says stuff. He just loves to just say things and just let them live in the ether and then never acknowledge them again. Objectively, that's just a dumb argument because that's sports. I don't know what to tell you.
Ever since Eli Drinkwitz told Josh Heupel to stand on business, a lot of things that he said are just just dripping in cringe. But to the point of a 24-team playoff in the conversation, do we need 24 teams? Do we need more than 12?
No. I will go as far as say I don't even think we need 12. I think we took too many steps ahead. We went from 4 to 12 when I thought 6 or 8 was a much sweeter spot. Objectively, you can look at college football the last few years and say, okay, this sport has evened out a little bit, where it's not just Alabama every year and you have more competition with Indiana and Ohio State and Michigan and, all these teams that are we're having a different national champion every year. So it's not as intense up top, but there is still a giant gap between the elite, the great, and the good. And when you're putting 24 teams in, objectively, you want Pitt in the playoff every year? No offense to Pitt. I'm an Iowa fan. You want Iowa in the playoff every year? No offense to Iowa, but I'm telling you, sometimes we shouldn't be there. It's just, there's such a giant gap in between the best teams in college football and the really good teams in college football that adding these extra teams does nothing but dilute the regular season, which I thought Sark made a really good point. He's also just been yapping lately. He's got a lot to say. Where the playoff in college football is the regular season. You have the opportunity to compete, especially when you're in a conference like the Big Ten and the SEC, to get to the playoff with your regular season. And maybe if I were told hey, these 12 extra spots, they're going to go to some maybe non-traditional teams. You'll see more group of 5 in there. You'll see more ACC, Big 12, whatever. That's not the case. Like, they're doing this to get more Big 10 and SEC teams in the playoff. Does it directly make my team like a much better shot to make the playoff? Absolutely. Would I love that? Is it good for the sport now? No, it is not.
So let me push back, Lucy. And here are my 2 pushbacks. I want to see what you think. Number 1, in fairness, I did a recording this morning about the Vegas Golden Knights going to the Stanley Cup final right now, right? Like, they're the first team ever with under 40 wins to make it to the Stanley Cup final, and it's a magical run. They wouldn't have even made the playoffs in the East, and it's a magical run. We credit unprecedented runs. You're in New York. The Giants were a wild card team that beat an undefeated Patriots team, and we still credit it as one of the greatest wins ever. So I want teams that we maybe don't think deserve to be in. And the other part of it is, you mentioned Iowa, right? Like, okay, well, how many people are going to watch an Iowa game in the middle of November that might not watch it otherwise because Iowa suddenly has a shot at the playoffs? I argue it creates more interest in places that wouldn't have the interest and gives us the opportunity to see more teams we might fall in love with.
It's bold of you to assume that anyone's going to seek out Iowa football in any situation ever.
Thank you.
It's just never.
Fair.
I just know that's not going to happen. I would agree with you if it was like the opportunity for a magical run. Like, is Mizzou going to make a magical run? Especially when we see these teams that would be the 12 extra teams that come in. They're going to be in the Big 10. They're going to be in the SEC. So we have already seen them against the competition where, like, Illinois was right around that 24 mark this year. Illinois lost by 50 to Indiana. Is that a team that we think deserves to be in the playoff? Like, I think you're just opening it up for more blowouts, for teams that don't deserve to be there. You're diluting bowl season. And the big complaint from this year for the college football playoff was there were so many blowouts in the first round. That was a complaint last year as well. So your solution is to add more teams that aren't as good. Like, I just think that my take on college football is it's always a regular season sport to me. It will always be a regular season sport. That is the beauty of college football. And we've put too much emphasis on the playoff that taking this playoff and expanding it, you take what college football is and you dilute it. And you take that regular season and you're going to have load management in college football late in the year. Like, you don't want that. College football used to be marked by, hey, we had a fantastic season and we went to the Orange Bowl. That's amazing. And that was like a win. Now it's playoff or bust. And I think the people pushing for this are not the people who care about the well-being of this sport and like appreciate college football for what it is. It was kind of beautiful.
So well said. That was poetic, but it's true.
Oh my God.
The beauty of college football is individual games themselves and how they are supposed to matter. And when you always just look at it like our coach is hired on the hot seat already because it is playoff or bust, it becomes an unsustainable model for a sport that we all know and we love so much. And so many of these teams expect to be in the college football playoff, even if they've never even been in the college football playoff before. And one of those teams is Florida. John Sumrall has talked a lot about, going from Tulane to Florida, how he was working 2 jobs for several weeks and how that's the dumbest thing ever and how we have to fix college football because the fact that we have John Sumrall actively recruiting for Florida and coaching for Tulane is absolutely insane. But all of that to say, can John Sumrall save Florida football?
That's a huge question. So my take with Florida is not getting Lane was a good thing for them. It's kind of like how I view Auburn. If Florida is interested in you, that's a bad sign. Like, they have bad taste. You shouldn't want to be liked by Florida. So for Summerall not to be the first choice, that's great. With Billy Napier, like, he was not a bad guy or anything like that. He just did stuff weird. He had 100 million people on the staff. It was a very undisciplined Florida team. I watched so many Florida games over the last several years where they just destroyed themselves on penalties and dumb procedural errors. And you're not going to get that with Summerall. He's a guy who's like very like, we're going to do this way and the right way. And he has a bit of a personality and he's likable. I think that will help Florida, but it's a long way to go. This is a fan base and a booster base that they are not very patient. They just won a national championship in basketball just 2 years ago, 1 year ago, whatever it was. Like, there is pressure at Florida to succeed. It will be better than Napier because I think you can fix a lot of the things that Napier did. And Napier like had talent on those Florida teams. Those were like good rosters. They just were so poorly coached that I do think that Summerall can get Florida to the next level. I just think patience is necessary, and Kirk Cignetti has made that impossible for everyone.
That's so true. It's microwave success now. You bring up how, Florida kind of dodged a bullet in not getting Lane Kiffin. I'm an LSU graduate. I'm a diehard LSU fan. Lane Kiffin is my coach. Should I be nervous?
I guess, do you like reality TV? Like, if you're like here for entertainment, like,
I guess
rock
I
and roll,
have to.
dude, you're gonna have a great time. Like, I think Lane is a great coach. My whole thing when I look at Lane is like, I know Kalen DeBoer just got a big extension. I understand what's going on with Alabama, but that's the job he wants. And if that job opens up, he's going to do exactly what he did to Ole Miss to LSU. Like, he's a great coach. You're going to have fun. It's going to be weird. He's going to get the energy alive. I love Baton Rouge. Those are freaks. They need Lane Kiffin to like bring that out. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. You'll have fun, but like, just know you're here for a good time, not a long time.
I feel that just hurts my heart for Caroline because we got some expectations here. All right, so Lucy, do this for me.
You'll
then.
win.
Give me your power ranking. Who do you think? Give me the top 3 or 4 teams in your mind. The top 4 teams in the SEC. Who are they this year?
Top 4 teams in the SEC. So Texas, wow, did they have an offseason? They reloaded. They have a lot of money and they are spending it. And something about the way that Sark has been talking the last few weeks, yeah, they're going to be really good. He would not speak like that if Texas did not have what it takes to back it up. The way that Arch improved over the span of last season, the last 6 games, was really, really good. Texas is the team to beat in the SEC right now. I'm bought into Georgia, of course, naturally. There are some concerns there with that defense. They didn't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback last year. I think they've made changes. So I'm going to go Texas, Georgia. I'm saying Alabama with like a little bit of caution, just because there's some stuff that's going on. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They didn't have the offseason they wanted to have it, but it's still Alabama. They'll be good. And give me John Mateer in Oklahoma. Like, I'm really excited to see him really, really healthy. That will make the difference for Oklahoma, where that defense was phenomenal. They just needed a bit of an offense, and John Mateer was playing with 9 fingers last year.
Yeah, shout out to, what was the doctor, that they revealed something about it in Chipotle.
It's awesome.
Like,
It
so
violates HIPAA.
awesome.
100% is awesome.
100%. College football is so weird. Like, we're having T-shirts with surgeons' faces on them and news getting broken in a Chipotle line. I'm obsessed with this sport. Keeping on the topic of the SEC. SEC spring meetings are going down in Destin, and Kirby Smart essentially said, hey, if we can financially afford it, I'm not opposed to the SEC breaking away from college football, starting our own league, and playing by our own rules. Look, I think anything is possible in this weird sport, but do you think that's actually within the realm of possibility, that we're going to see conferences break away and start doing their own things?
I won't say it's completely impossible. Like, I just think this is such a purely financially motivated decision, and the SEC brings in a lot of money. The SEC is very lucrative. I think what's more concerning for what Kirby said was actually what Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard said last week, where he was like, why don't the rest of us break off? I think that is almost, which would in turn make the SEC and Big Ten break off. That feels feasible to me, where the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the ACC get so fed up with this stuff that they go form their own league, and we just have the Big Ten and the SEC, the Fox and the ESPN conferences is what they will be. I think that it is not going to happen, but like, I don't know. I didn't think that Oregon would be in the Big Ten. I didn't think that Cal and Stanford would play an ACC baseball game in Charlotte like last week. So like, the sport is so different and changes so rapidly that like, it is possible. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't think it will, but it's like not out of the ordinary. Like, it's not out of the possibility.
When you say that, though, it makes me think of the movie Ants. Remember, like the animated movie where all the ants had to figure out that if they banded together, they had more power. If everybody outside of the ACC or the Big Ten and the SEC, if they all break away, would that be successful in your mind? Do you think people would flock to watch college football that didn't include the ESPN and Fox package, essentially?
I think there would still be people there. There would still be an interest, but frankly, like, and I know this is not like a one-team thing, but if Ohio State's not there, people aren't going to watch as much. Like, I think it will exist, and because there's fan bases everywhere, there are markets in the Big 12, there are markets in the ACC. I just it would definitely be, obviously the Big Ten and the SEC leagues would just get more attention. They would be better. But like TV networks are going to want to watch football whenever. They're going to want to have it on their programming. So like it wouldn't die, but it certainly wouldn't be the primetime slot.
Lucy, before you hopped on, we were talking about the Knicks and how ticket prices for any game at MSG are absolutely through the roof. I think to sit in the nosebleeds, it's like $3,800 just to get in the door. If you had to spend $3,800 on any game in college football this year, which one would you say, oh yeah, like that's worth it?
I feel like it has to be September 19th. It has to be Ole Miss LSU. Like it's just gonna be it's gonna be so bad. I saw a TikTok this morning of a guy on vacation who ran into Lane Kiffin, asked to take a photo with him, and was like, "Hotty toddy, we're gonna beat you September 19th." And Lane was so pissed. Like the energy is already there. I love the Grove. Like that is the game to be at. That town is not like prayers to the residents of Oxford. That place is gonna fall apart that week. Like it's not gonna go well for anybody.
I love how you can just say September 19th. Like,
oh, and we know.
It. 9/19. You know, IYKYK.
I can't decide whether it's the must be at event or the must avoid event because it's just going to be such a you know what show the entire way. I just know the week leading up is going to be epic. Follow her on social media at CFB Lucy is how you get to it. We're both huge fans of your work. We really appreciate you coming on. You got to come back, hang out with us again during the college football season. It's going to be an electric one. Thanks for joining us, Lucy.
Thanks for having me. We're only like 90 days away. We're close. It's basically, it's almost August.
I got the joy down in my heart. That's it. Thank you so much, Lucy. Appreciate it. Follow her on social media at CFB Lucy.
Thanks,
Coming
Lucy.
up next, we'll get back to a little bit of the NBA. Does this pairing actually make sense? Giannis and the King? We'll tell you about it.
And the Jets with Darren Mucci as GM feel like they are figuring it out. Now, can Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, stay out of the way and let this thing progress? Does Aaron Glenn actually have the goods as head coach? I don't know that. But I think Geno Smith was a really sound signing. And I really do think, dodging lightning bolts here, the Jets could surprise people this year and be a lot better than the team you've been watching the last 15 years during this historic playoff drought.
How did you feel about his 2025? Do you think the hype is justified? Is he your number one guy right now?
I would feel comfortable putting him as QB1 right now. What I saw from Arch down the stretch, like I just think that a lot of people stopped watching Arch in October. It was like, this guy's not good. And they moved on.
They did.
And then we got to Florida. And then we got Tennessee. And we moved on and on and on. And he stacked games and he stacked games and he stacked games. I was texting a Southwest scout and I was like, fill in the blank. Arch Manning has the best pocket movement skills since, and he said Joe Burrow.
Should AJ Bonsa be a lock for the number one pick going to the Washington Wizards? What do you think, Chad?
He's been my favorite player to watch really all year. I love what AJ brings to the table and the upside. I think he's got the combination of a can't miss scorer who could just ultimately be, one of the elite top 5 players in the NBA. And I just don't think the Wizards take the risk. To me, he's the clear number one guy.
Second down and 7, 5 to play. DeLorean launches, far boards, got a man deep in the end zone, caught, touchdown! The Orlando Pirates take a big shot and cash in.
It was only a matter of time before he had the one-on-one situation, and he got a chance to show off that blazing speed.
Nyquan Murray continues a massive night.
The Wizards are a potential trade suitor for Giannis Antetokounmpo per Mark Spears. This is a quote. I was basically told by a very good source that they're going to explore their options, and I think that with some of the young talent they have, why not, right? That's the summer we're headed for. We're headed for wild rumors, I should say, all over the place about where Giannis is going to go and also where LeBron's going to go. The Wizards are being mentioned as a wild card option for LeBron James. Also, we've heard this about the Cavs, maybe that we can see LeBron and Giannis together. Do you like the thought of Giannis and LeBron together, Caroline?
I love the thought. I mean, the idea of it sounds really fun. And fantasy basketball, that seems like a jolly good time. I would be here for that 1,000%. Is that realistic? No. It's definitely not realistic for the Washington Wizards. Because, when I think about LeBron's final season, and there's a Giannis side to this as well, but when I think about LeBron's final season, I think about it being cinematic and historic and meaningful and things that we're going to tell our children about. That LeBron is absolutely going to squeeze every last drop out of that final year lemon. He's going to have a documentary crew following him. He'll have standing ovations in every single arena that he goes to. It's going to be one of the biggest storylines in the NBA next year, making the assumption that next year is his final year. Maybe I shouldn't make that assumption, but whenever that final year comes, that'll be the massive storyline throughout the entire league, throughout the entire season. Do you want that to be with the Washington Wizards? Like, when we talk about sad franchises right now in the NBA, we talk about the Pelicans, we talk about the Sacramento Kings, and we talk about the Washington Wizards. They are the butt of the joke in the NBA, if they're even thought about enough to be the butt of the joke in the NBA. Now, look, no disrespect to the Washington Wizards. There's some lovely people who work in the Wizards front office. The Washington Wizards have some lovely fans. And I think that they're going to have a very bright future with whoever is the number 1 overall pick. But it's not where LeBron James is spending his final year of the most historic and legendary and successful careers in the history of this sport.
When I think legends in Washington Wizards, the first thought that comes to my mind is Fat Mike. And by that, I mean Michael Jordan, after he came back from retirement, admitted that he put on around 30 pounds during retirement because he was living the good life, right? So he came back, played for the Wizards. Yeah. We got to see Fat Mike. And Fat Mike still had some good games, but it wasn't the Mike that we were used to. It wasn't Michael Jordan that we were used to. I don't see any world where LeBron James wants to go back to the place that Michael Jordan went back to. Like, why would you even put that into the ethos, number one? Number two, he's not winning. Even if he and Giannis go together to Washington, they're not winning a championship. So I just think all of this is pointless. And Caroline, you made a point earlier about video. Like, if we were playing the video game version, if this was NBA Jam, yeah, I want to see Giannis and LeBron together. Great. Let's pick the two of them.
Yeah.
We'll kick everybody's ass on NBA Jam. That's a blast. But that's not what this is. What's happening right now with Giannis is particularly, and a little bit with LeBron, to me is very reminiscent of the White Lotus. If anybody watched the TV show White Lotus on HBO Max, right. The last season of the White Lotus, I spent all week listening to my friends tell me the wild twists and turns they were expecting every single week. And what you end up with is you're sitting at a bar and you've got 20 people that have come up with the weirdest TV show in history because they're like, oh, it's going to do this and this and this. I didn't want to listen to any of it. I didn't think the show ended all that poorly last season. Everybody else did. Why? Because they all expected something incredibly insane and mind-blowing. That's what we've been doing with LeBron forever. That's what we've been doing with Giannis forever. Like, the simplest solution is more often than not the correct solution. You're telling me that suddenly now, in the last season of LeBron's career, likely, he's going to want a documentary crew likely to cover him, we believe, while he makes his farewell tour. But also, it's the introductory tour of Giannis into that same team, who he's having to learn how to play with while he's balancing spending time far away from his family, far away from his businesses, and they're trying to figure out how to gel together. It just makes no sense. When you actually apply logic to any of this, it makes no sense. Giannis and LeBron playing to the Wizards is not going to happen. And you can freezing cold, like I am so confident, you can go ahead, clip this off, send it to Freezing Cold Takes, all of those plays. It's not going to happen. The two of them, I don't believe, are going to play together anywhere. But if they do play together somewhere, it's not going to be because they both moved somewhere. You're not going to have two superstars decide that what they need to do is figure it out on the fly together when one of those superstars is up against the wall trying to win a championship. Maybe you could twist me into trying to find a way to put Giannis on the Lakers with LeBron because that's only one new piece. You might be able to talk me into that. But if you're trying to talk me into LeBron and Giannis together going to a new team together at the same time, my answer to that is hell no, it's not happening.
It's definitely not going to be the Wizards. No disrespect to the Wizards. But it's not going to be the Wizards. I don't even see a world where Giannis and LeBron can even play together. I don't see how that can make sense. Because I think that either LeBron is going to do one of two things in his next season or final season. Maybe one of three things. He's going to go where he can make the most money. I don't know who can afford both Giannis and LeBron and to pay LeBron the most money out there in the market. Like, I think LeBron's probably going to command $25 to $30 million next year. But like, if you are going to throw 60 mil, 50 mil at LeBron, you probably have to pay Giannis close to that amount too. So I don't see a world where that makes financial cap sense. LeBron is either going to go where he can win a championship. Well, if there's a team that's positioned right now to win a championship, what are they going to tear it down to the studs and acquire both LeBron and Giannis? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Or LeBron's just going to stay in LA because he likes LA. His family likes living in LA. He likes being a Laker. He's comfortable in his role with the Lakers. You think there's a world where the Lakers can have LeBron, Luka, Giannis, and Austin Reeves? Let's just say in a world you move on from Austin Reeves. I believe he's free agent this offseason. You have LeBron, Luka, and Giannis? I think one of the Lakers' biggest problems this past season was because they had three players that played their best basketball when the ball was in their hands. When does Luka play his best? Ball in his hands. LeBron and Austin Reeves the same way. There's only one basketball. So if you have LeBron, Giannis, and Luka, those are three guys that very much so play their best basketball with the ball in their hands. I don't think LeBron and Giannis are going to play very nice together because it doesn't make basketball sense and it doesn't make financial sense either.
Yeah, well, and this is where Cleveland fans, hear me, Cavs fans, listen to me. I told you yesterday, Kenny Atkinson wasn't going anywhere. I told you yesterday on this show, yesterday morning, what got announced yesterday? I don't know, an extension for Kenny Atkinson. He is returning as head coach of the Cavs. So I tell you that because A, I want you to know I'm right, and B, I want you to know that I'm right because I'm only applying logic. So now that you've heard that I was right about this and I'm only applying logic, I want you to think about February 3rd. Why is that significant? February 3rd is the date that James Harden was acquired by the Cavs. That's significant to me because I'll go back to what we heard from Harden on the court about a week ago post-game when he said, we're still learning how to try to play together and gel together. That was something we heard from Harden all the way into the summer, all the way into May about a trade that happened February 3rd. It takes time for guys to come together. So as you see here, Kenny Atkinson, the coaching staff, the front office staff, they're all staying. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Cleveland believes the path to getting to where they want to get is continuity. That tells you that Cleveland believes, in my mind, that the pieces are in place. They just need to learn how to maximize each other. So now suddenly if your concept is, well, we'll trade Jared Allen over and then we're going to bring in Giannis and then we'll sign LeBron and LeBron will come in, but LeBron will play for way less money and we can make it all work under the salary cap. How does that help any of the continuity? Why keep everybody if you're blowing everything up? If you're keeping your head coach, you're keeping your front office, you're keeping your entire bench of coaches, you're keeping them for the sake of continuity. Why would you keep the coaches for continuity and then blow up the players that are playing around them? And furthermore, why would you make any decision at all about your next head coach who you easily could have fired? You could have fired without any hesitation based on the fact that he just got swept. And you're telling me that you're going to acquire Giannis, but not talk to him about what coach he wants, and you're going to acquire LeBron. So you're going to acquire Giannis and LeBron together. You're going to bring them in, but you're not going to give them any say in what the coach looks like. You're not going to give that staff any say on what the pieces are that they want with them. You're not doing any of that. You're just suddenly blindly adding Giannis and LeBron. The fact that Kenny Atkinson got the long-term extension yesterday, or the reports of the long-term extension are out there, tells me very clearly the Cavs are not looking to make massive change. I don't think Giannis and LeBron are headed to Cleveland.
Cleveland clearly wants to run it back. I don't agree with that decision. I do not believe that you can win a championship with this, unit that's currently constructed, but that's what they're doing. And it is very, very obvious. And bringing Kenny Atkinson back and making that promise that Brian Windhorst reported that the Cavs made and promising James Harden a longer-term deal. I think the only area where it would make sense for the Cavs to bring in LeBron is as a leader. What was the biggest thing that this team was lacking in the postseason? It was leadership. It was somebody that could galvanize the locker room. It was somebody that could get everybody up and keep everyone focused. I don't think LeBron is interested in being a leader and a cheerleader and a fixer in a locker room wherever he goes.
Yeah, it's just the beginning of a tumultuous offseason of rumors. But I think, let's take these as two separate situations. LeBron is going to go wherever makes the most sense for LeBron in a million different ways. And that's going to be partially money. That's going to be partially offense. That's going to be partially the ability to win. It's going to be comfort with who's around him. It's all of these things factored in together. When you talk about going somewhere where he has to be a leader, I question why you just traded for James Harden, who we both know has never had playoff success. But now you need to bring in a leader on top of James Harden, who is a grown-ass vet playing in the NBA, to calm the ship during the playoffs. So that's side one of it. And the Giannis side of it also, incredibly, I know we're all going to sit here and try and figure out where Giannis can go and win. But I would remind the world that Giannis doesn't necessarily impact where that's going to be. The Bucks have a responsibility to send Giannis where it makes the most sense for the Bucks. So I keep looking around saying, if the Bucks are asking for a king's ransom, what team is going to go out there and give up that king's ransom for an aging superstar that has absolute injury issues? So plenty to figure out over the course of the summer. In the meantime, coming up next, we are going to talk to a legend in Major League Baseball, the great Dusty Baker, joining the show next.
Are there any teams that come to mind, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Sacramento, or anybody else that you think has good incentive to try to move up in the draft?
If there was a team that I was looking at that had an asset, it's Milwaukee at 10 that might use Giannis to, for example, maybe try to get that fifth pick from the Clippers. That's the only team that I'm looking at right now that I say, okay, I think they've got the juice.
This is a team that is also doing it without some signature players in their rotation. Hunter Green, we have not seen him, but what Terry Francona and his staff are putting together right now, Sal Stewart is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Ellie De La Cruz is an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I think that the Cincinnati Reds are a team that has some staying power in what is a very interesting and potentially compelling National League Central.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Right across the street from where the Giants and the Jets play, we've got professional football indoor. The run-up in the left-footed kick is on the ground and picked up by an up man for the Rattlers. It's Ronnie Brown. Brown out across midfield and a great run down the boards to the end zone. Touchdown, Brown! What a start in the IFL Cup! Huge high hop, and he just absolutely had a nose for the end zone down the wall.
This is a legendary picture. Howard Cosell interviewing Dusty Baker. Dusty won 2 Silver Sluggers and made 2 All-Star teams during his Dodgers tenure from 76 to 83, but that is just a small piece of his legendary resume. World Series champion as both a player and a manager, the first to win division titles with 5 different teams, holder of 2,183 career managerial wins. Dusty, we appreciate your time. You're a legend. We're going to talk to you about heart health in a little bit, but first, when you see that picture and you think about these memories, what comes to mind for you?
Well, what comes to mind with that Howard Cosell interview is the fact that I thought that I had arrived. Because when Howard Cosell interviews you, at that time, you know, he was interviewing Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and all the top boxers. And I was like, man, I must be at the top. I must be doing pretty good in my life. So that's one of my favorite pictures of all time with Howard Cosell.
Such a special moment and special memory, and you're still involved in the game of baseball. You're on the staff with the San Francisco Giants. And Dusty, I come from and married into a Tennessee Volunteers family. So they were so excited when Tony Vitello got the opportunity in San Francisco. What has his transition from the college game to the major league game been like? How has he been acclimating into MLB?
Well, you know, he's doing pretty good. The team, you know, he's not used to losing like this. He's not used to maybe being out there every day, because when you're in professional ball, it's a daily game. You know, in the college, which my son played in, usually play Tuesdays, Fridays and Saturdays and some Sundays. But he's acclimating well. I just urge San Francisco to give him a chance, to give him an opportunity, because like you're not just going to go in usually and turn it around, overnight. So like again, like I said, I've urged him to give him the opportunity. He's a good baseball man. He's a good person. I talked to Ron Washington and people on his staff, and they like him and they like him a lot. So I'm just hoping that they turn it around here pretty soon.
Dusty, a huge part of being a manager is also managing personalities. You managed one of the best, Barry Bonds, right? But you knew him before he was even a superstar, obviously. So when you think about it, we all know his imprint on the game. How should we be thinking of when we remember Barry Bonds' career? How should we remember it?
Well, he's one of the greatest players of all time. And I was fortunate enough to play, with Hank Aaron, who's one of the greatest players of all time, and then manage one of the best players of all time. And, these guys are generational type players. He helped build this beautiful ballpark here in San Francisco. The transition from Candlestick Park to San Francisco, at that time it was Pac Bell. It was a privately financed stadium, which is unheard of. And, Barry Bonds helped put butts in the seats and, took us, to levels that San Francisco hadn't seen in a long time. So, you got to look at him as one of the greatest players of all time. And here I am with, with Barry and his father, Bobby, who I grew up idolizing. And so that was kind of like, good home week, Riverside all together. And like I said, I've known Barry since he was a little kid.
You had a long stint with the Giants. Like you mentioned, you still live in San Francisco. You know that organization through and through. What makes the San Francisco Giants a special organization?
Well, it's the people. It's always the people. It's always the people from ownership to management, down to the players. And this city has been in love with the San Francisco Giants for a long time, and the Giants feel send that reciprocal love back to the city. And, this is a beautiful city. I know a lot of people had talked about it over the last decade that it was declining, but this city is definitely on the incline now. And so I think that's what makes this a special city. Plus, they won some championships after I left, and they actually beat me, one of them, to go to the championship. So, being back in San Francisco to me is, something that I've done for a long, long time. I came back here as a teenager, going to Haight-Ashbury and going to concerts and going, just hanging out in this beautiful town.
Well, another special city that you have a ton of experience with is Chicago, obviously, and the Cubs. And we know how important the Cubs are to the city of Chicago. When you're in a skid like the Cubs are in right now, and you've got that pressure from a city that loves their team so much, how do you get out of it?
Tell you the truth, I really don't know. You have to realize that you're one game away, from a winning streak. And, there was a time just a month ago that they had won like 10 or 12 in a row or 14 in a row at home. And, that's a beautiful city. It's a tough city when you're losing, like I went through it. And, they take the wins and losses to heart. They believe in the W, and the whole town's excited, when they win and they wave the W, and the whole town is depressed and down when they lose. So, I just hate to see them in that kind of skid. Hate to see anybody in that kind of skids. I know Craig Counsell and some of the players on that team, especially like guys like Bregman who played for me. So it's a long season. You go through ups and downs, and hopefully they can turn it around.
There's a lot of conversation between the Nats and the Reds fan bases on social media. They're kind of sparring back and forth between Elly De La Cruz and CJ Abrams, both star shortstops who lead their respective teams in batting average and hits and RBIs. If you were constructing a super team and you had to choose between Elly De La Cruz or CJ Abrams to play for you, who would you pick?
God, come on, girl. Uh,
Putting you on the spot here, I know.
you put me on the spot because I like them both. They're both very, very, very talented. I'd probably go with Ellie because of the talent and the upside potential of where he may become, and the strength and the speed that he has. But I'll tell you, you could pick either one of them and have a heck of a player. And I don't follow social media much, and I know that they had some words earlier in the year, but hey, man, these things happen, and I really don't pay a lot of attention to it.
You mentioned you don't pay a lot of attention to social media, but players in the modern era do. How different is it? Like, you ever think about what social media would have meant for the teams that you managed?
Well, if there was social media when I played or managed, there'd be a lot of guys in trouble. You know what I mean? And I asked my son, who's involved with social media and who plays for the Chicago White Sox. I asked him, I said, son, you didn't go out and have a good time or whatever. And he said, Dad, we can't do what you guys used to do back in the day because of social media and because of cameras. And I kind of feel sorry for them, to a degree, because they don't really get the full enjoyment of being a professional or traveling around for fear of doing something or appearing to be doing something on social media.
I mean, with that being said, Dusty, I hear so often that championship teams just have a special bond and quality. Is it harder to get that bond today, given all of the distractions and all of the cameras that exist?
Well, I think it's harder to get that bond, period, because I think it's getting harder and harder to teach teamwork because of everything's about branding and everything's about look at me. And every time you're mentioning me or branding, you're getting away from the team, concept. I remember talking to John Wooden years ago, and I asked him why did he have everybody passing the ball like 2 or 3 times when they had an open shot, and he says because that tends to get you away from selfishness, and that selfishness was not a character trait but a character weakness, and so. In my life, I had also talked to, Bill Walsh about different things about teamwork. And he's always enforced to me about, hey, man, don't showboat because that's about look at me versus, team and team outlook on things. So I just think it's getting a little harder to teach team than it was before.
Social media is not the only change that we've experienced, maybe from your time as a player until now. Baseball has changed so much. The ABS, we have the pitch clock. How do you feel about the current health of the game of baseball?
Well, I think the game's healthy. I think it's very healthy. I just think that some of the fundamentals maybe have broken down some. As far as, and a lot of that is because of a lot of the teachers that play the game, who would be the teachers and coaches now are guys that, can't get a job. And, the game is very healthy, but the pitch clock helps a lot because, I mean, these games are taking too long. But the whole thing is it can't turn into an aerobic act by the pitcher, because of the pitch clock. And I've noticed that guys are missing signs or not getting signs sometime on the bases, because they're not in tune right away to the pitch clock, which slows everything down on one hand, but it speeds everything up on the other hand. So I think the game's in a very healthy state. I wish they would possibly extend the pitch clock a few more seconds. And I also, with the ABS system, the automatic strike zone, I wish they would have maybe a margin around that because nobody has the eye like the machine, not the umpire, not the pitcher, the catcher, or the hitter. And so I just wish that they would extend just a little bit of margin on each side, all sides of the plate.
One thing that I've heard constantly for the last several years is the Dodgers are bad for baseball. What would you say to that argument, given all your experience around the game?
Well, they might be bad for baseball, but they're great for LA. and I was there. And that's way out of my lane right there about what's good and bad for baseball. Nobody asked me, number one, and then if they did, I don't know. It might fall on deaf ears, but we'll see. I'm just hoping that this new bargaining agreement is coming up. I'm just hoping that people don't try to get baseball, back in line at the expense of everybody else in the country.
You've been incredibly open about your battles with congestive heart failure and a mini stroke. Full transparency, Dusty, I've got a double bypass, my first heart procedure scheduled for the end of July. So you and I have some passion here that we share on this. What made you decide to be part of Playing with Heart, and why is your LDL number so important to you?
Well, because I think it's important for the world, and it's important for people to realize that there are a lot of people out there that are in the same position that they're in. And, when I was asked to be a part of this, I said, hey, where can I sign up for this? Because I'm very aware of my good cholesterol and my bad cholesterol. And I go to the doctor probably 2 or 3 times a year just to make sure that everything's okay. Because I'm very, very fortunate to be to really be alive and to be healthy, simply because I've had great doctors along the way, and also trainers, that I had in baseball, that we'd have 2 or 3 physicals a year, whether we wanted them or not. And I believe that because of my consistency of going to the doctor, being aware of my weight, being aware of my good and bad cholesterol, my blood pressure and everything, that's the reason why I can enjoy my grandchildren now that are 4 and 6 years old, and I can enjoy, watching my son play, and enjoy, staying alive for my wife and my family.
Daryl Kyle, it was such a tragic story several years ago. Died in his sleep from suffering from advanced coronary artery disease. He was probably one person who thought something like that could never happen to me. We all think that. We've all said that before, right? That's never going to happen to me. That could never happen to me. So, keeping in mind what happened to Daryl Kyle, what is maybe one message that you want people watching and listening to take away from?
Well, the one thing is that go to the doctor. Take care of yourself. Listen to those that know more than we know. Because when I had my stroke, I had congestive heart failure, and I asked my doctor, what would have happened? Would I have had a heart attack or whatever? And he told me that I probably would have just died in my sleep and wouldn't have known the difference. And so, that kind of frightened me into reality and taking care of yourself. And see, in the past, we all thought that only older people had heart attacks or had, heart problems. Well, this is happening to very young. You see, like Daryl Kyle, you see guys dying every day. I mean, death now has no real age to it like we used to think that it had. So my message to everybody is to go see your doctor, pay attention to it, to pay attention to your own self, because hey, man, you don't know, tomorrow's not promised to anybody.
Yeah, well, Dusty, I can say again, I'm in the best health of my life. I eat as clean as you could ever eat. And they told me a couple of months ago that you got massive heart issues. So it's just a reminder to everybody, get your blood work done, get checked. It's important. I was really excited to get to talk to you about this. Playing with Heart is a beautiful initiative by you and by Major League Baseball. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your storytelling, and I appreciate you using your platform to help people get the message that's so important. Thanks for hanging out with us, Dusty.
Okay, you too, man. Take care of yourself, man.
Oh, you too. It's absolute. I tell everybody all the time, go get your numbers checked. Go make sure that you're in good health. You never know. Your body is a wild thing. All right, coming up, we will get back to more.
You can't tell by looking at a person. That's the thing.
You are so right about that. Coming up, we'll get back to some coaching in the NFL, a comparison you didn't know you needed about Mike McCarthy.
And the Jets with Darren Mucci as GM feel like they are figuring it out. Now, can Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, stay out of the way and let this thing progress? Is Aaron Glenn actually have the goods as head coach? I don't know that, but I think Geno Smith was a really sound signing, and I really do think, dodging lightning bolts here, the Jets could surprise people this year and be a lot better than the team you've been watching the last 15 years during this historic playoff drought.
How did you feel about his 2025? Do you think the hype is justified? Is he your number one guy right now?
I would feel comfortable putting him as QB1 right now. What I saw from Arch down the stretch, I just think that a lot of people stopped watching Arch in October. It was like, this guy's not good. And they moved on.
They did.
And then we got to Florida. And then we got Tennessee. And we moved on and on and on. And he stacked games and he stacked games and he stacked games. I was texting a Southwest scout and I was like, fill in the blank. Arch Manning has the best pocket movement skills since, and he said Joe Burrow.
Should AJ Bonsa be a lock for the number one pick going to the Washington Wizards? What do you think, Chad?
He's been my favorite player to watch really all year. I love what AJ brings to the table and the upside. I think he's got the combination of a can't miss scorer who could just ultimately be, one of the elite top 5 players in the NBA. And I just don't think the Wizards take the risk. To me, he's the clear number one guy.
Second down and 7, 5 to play. DeLorean launches, far boards, got a man deep in the end zone, caught, touchdown! The Orlando Pirates take a big shot and cash it in.
It was only a matter of time before he had the one-on-one situation, and he got a chance to show off that blazing speed.
Nyquan Murray continues a massive night.
You see 2 head coaches in front of you. Well, you see 2 silhouettes, but you see 2 resumes in front of you. 18 seasons, 1 Super Bowl, 4 championship appearances, a wildly similar regular season win percentage, and a very similar playoff win percentage. But one of these 2 coaches is getting a ton of credit, and the other coach of these 2 coaches is getting a massive eye roll. These 2 coaches, of course, are New York Giants, New York Giants head coach John Harbaugh and Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike McCarthy. Those are the 2 coaches we're talking about. So my question, Caroline, is why isn't McCarthy getting the same amount of love? Because it feels like everyone's like, the Giants are about to explode. They got Harbaugh. We're not saying the same thing about the Steelers.
And to see the reaction from both of these 2 fan bases, going back to when both of these 2 coaches were hired, for Giants fans, it was like, we got our guy. We're back. We're going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. And then Steelers fans were like, oh, brother, you got to be kidding me. This guy? And when you look at their resumes, that's exactly what it is. It's like, no, this coach with a 600 win percentage in a Super Bowl is scaring me, but this other coach with a 600 win percentage in 1 Super Bowl is going to change the entire, our entire franchise. Shout out to our producer, Hutton Jackson, for this meme. I don't know why the reaction is so wildly different, because these are 2 guys that are the exact same. It just, one has better PR than the other. But I do think the biggest differentiating factor between how we view these 2 coaches this year, not as a whole, but this year, is Harbaugh is taking over for a young team. There's hope. There's optimism. Giants fans feel like they've got their quarterback, and they should feel that way. I think they have their quarterback too. They have a young receiver in Malik Neighbors, and Cam Scadaboo is just an absolute, just truck that I think is funny, and everybody laughs at him on social media. It's a young team that has drafted well, that feels like they have a lot of really good football ahead of them. There's hope, there's optimism. It's everything is going to be fine season. But in Pittsburgh, it's an aging team with a 42, 43-year-old quarterback who's going into his final year in the National Football League. I don't know what the average age is of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I very much so believe it's north of 30 and maybe even hovering around 35. That the Steelers just feel like they've been stuck. They have been stuck in this cycle of going 9-8 and barely squeaking into the playoffs and getting beat in the wild card round of the postseason. They've just been in the same cycle, and it doesn't feel like they're getting out of it anytime soon. And it doesn't feel like they're one Mike McCarthy away from breaking this cycle. So I think that we do, not rightfully so, look at these coaches on such wildly different trajectories because of what they've done when they've done the exact same thing. But I do think the way that we look at them and what they can achieve this year is looked at wildly differently because of where these teams have been and the rosters that they'll be coaching.
I agree with that. I do also think that narratives catch on. How many times have I heard, how did Mike McCarthy only win one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? Or the flip side of it is, you won the Super Bowl, but you won with Aaron Rodgers. What else have you done? We say that all the time. I will remind everybody, Harbaugh didn't win a Super Bowl the way that we always want to think. Like, we love to go back and say, oh, well, he has Lamar. He won a Super Bowl. He did not win a Super Bowl with arguably one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. He won a Super Bowl with Flacco. So, and look, maybe there's credit to that. Flacco obviously got himself paid out of that Super Bowl. Flacco's had a very nice career. But I do think it's interesting that we spent so much time saying McCarthy essentially wasted time because he only got one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, who is one of the elite talents of his generation. But we never say, how did Harbaugh, with a stacked defensive roster and one of the best quarterbacks of his generation, not get Lamar a Super Bowl? I do think it's – and look, there's context to all of this. I understand it. I'm the one that always says, like, there are other variables, right? Like, Mahomes existing has to be part of the conversation of why Lamar hasn't won a Super Bowl. I think that's fair. But for whatever reason, the narrative has come into this place to the point that we're convinced that Harbaugh is this just great uplifter and McCarthy is somebody that holds people back. I don't buy that. So you're right, though. I think part of the reason that we have more hope this year is because Harbaugh's taking over a young team with quarterback. Like, I don't have hope for the Steelers because I don't know what the hell their quarterback situation is long-term. I don't really know how good that roster is long-term. I look at the Giants and think, oh, yeah, we're trying to buy in to some of these young weapons, so let's go with the Giants here. But I think there's also, whether we like it or not, some subconscious bias that plays into that conversation. So I think better first year, I want to believe it's Harbaugh because I believe in the young roster. But that resume is a reminder that both of these coaches have earned about the same amount of benefit of the doubt going into this season.
I do also think it's wildly unfair that we view the fact that Lamar Jackson has not won a Super Bowl or has not gotten to a Super Bowl. We view that as a deficiency or a knock on Lamar Jackson. We never talk about how that's a deficiency on John Harbaugh. And I think that is so unfair because there have been so many times that John Harbaugh has totally and completely blown it as a tactician. It doesn't just fall on the quarterback. It's coaching quarterback in this sport. But when you say who's a better first year, I think that all depends on expectation. Because if the Steelers make the playoffs and don't win a playoff game, that will be, here we go again. We are unsatisfied. We're frustrated. We're annoyed. We don't want this anymore. We'd rather be terrible than make the playoffs and lose in the first round of the postseason again. If the Giants make the playoffs and don't win a playoff game, I think they'll throw a party in the streets. Like, I think there will be a parade in New York if they just make the postseason. I think they're going to be talking about Jackson Dart extensions. Like, we're going to be talking about John Harbaugh is the king of New York. Even if the outcome of those seasons, of these two seasons between John Harbaugh and Mike McCarthy, are exactly the same, we will view John Harbaugh as a much greater success than Mike McCarthy, just based off of expectation and based off of where these two teams are coming into the season from.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right. And that also comes into, we're trying to figure out what both of these franchises look like long-term. So the question becomes, which coach do you trust more to develop a young quarterback? Well, I can honestly say that Harbaugh was in the room for the development of Lamar Jackson, which was a big development project. If we're being honest, like, most people did not think that Lamar was going to be Lamar. But also, I think it's also fair to say that the flip side of it is McCarthy had plenty of time with Aaron Rodgers on the bench behind Favre while he was being slow developed. So I don't know that we have a ton of idea of which team can develop a young quarterback better. What we know is right now in the building, there's a better young quarterback for the Giants. So to me, it's not that I trust one quarterback more than the other. I don't trust the Steelers to get the path to a young quarterback. That's the hard part about this. So I trust, I think I have equal trust for both of them for development, but I have no idea where that player is going to come that's going to get developed, because we're not talking about developing fifth round talent. I'm talking about developing a great quarterback into an even better quarterback.
And I think we have to point out the obvious difference here is Mike McCarthy is an offensive head coach. John Harbaugh is a leader of men. great culture guy in the locker room. Like, he doesn't own one side of the football. That John Harbaugh and his teams are so much of a product of their coordinators because he's not an offensive guru. He's not a defensive mastermind like a Mike McDonald. So I think if you just look at it in a vacuum, if I can only have John Harbaugh developing young quarterback versus Mike McCarthy developing a young quarterback, I would probably defer to Mike McCarthy because he owns that side of the football. But John Harbaugh clearly has plenty of a sample sizes and has a long enough resume of developing some of these young quarterbacks, but it's not only because of him. Sure, it's because of the ecosystem and the environment that he creates, that he very much so is a culture guy, and culture matters in the National Football League. But with John Harbaugh, he has to get his coordinator hires right. That is so much more mission critical for John Harbaugh than it might be a Mike McCarthy, a Sean McVay, a Mike McDonald, defensive or offensive masterminds. But credit to John Harbaugh because more times than not, he has gotten those coordinator hires right.
There is no doubt. All eyes will be on both of these coaches. All eyes also right now on some news in the NFL that is broken about Josh Jacobs, the Packers running back. Before we break, Josh Jacobs facing domestic violence charges. We found out last night he was arrested and booked in Wisconsin. One of his five charges is felony strangulation and suffocation. Jacobs, through his attorneys, denies the allegations. He turned himself in. He was booked. And now we will await more information. Right now, Caroline, we don't have a ton of information on any of this. So far, the NFL has historically shown to be slow to react to this until we get more information. But as it stands right now, 5 charges, including 1 felony, facing the Packers superstar running back.
If this is true, which I won't make an assumption, shame on Josh Jacobs. Shame on him for doing something stupid that hurts his football team. And shame on him for putting someone's life at risk. I'm so tired of this. We have such a long history of NFL players beating up their wives and girlfriends and putting other people at risk. I implore the NFL to approach this with a certain level of seriousness that I don't think that they have in the past. So many times, players who have history of domestic abuse or domestic violence just get a slap on the wrist and we move on from it, and they continue to bask in the glory and make millions and millions of dollars when they have shown behind closed doors they can be a threat to so many people around them. I'm so tired of these types of stories popping up in the National Football League. And now we await more information of what Josh Jacobs' future looks like, not just out on the football field, but legally as well.
I hope that we find out that this isn't what we think it is right now. And if we do find out that it's what we think it is, then I hope they come down with the thunder of the gods. We will keep you updated on whatever information we get on this as the news continues to break and more details inevitably become available. In the meantime, coming up next, we're going to try and figure out, I just told you Giannis going places doesn't always make sense, but could OKC get freaky? We'll tell you about it next.
Are there any teams that come to mind, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Sacramento, or anybody else that you think has good incentive to try to move up in the draft?
If there was a team that I was looking at that had an asset, it's Milwaukee at 10 that might use Giannis to, for example, maybe try to get that 5th pick from the Clippers. That's the only team that I'm looking at right now that I say, okay, I think they've got the juice.
This is a team that is also doing it without some signature players in their rotation. Hunter Green, we have not seen him, but what Terry Francona and his staff are putting together right now, Sal Stewart is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Ellie De La Cruz is an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I think that the Cincinnati Reds are a team that has some staying power in what is a very interesting and potentially compelling National League Central.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back 1 position.
right across the street from where the Giants and the Jets play, we've got professional football indoor. The run-up in the left-footed kick is on the ground and picked up by an up man for the Rattlers. It's Ronnie Brown. Brown out across midfield and a great run down the boards to the end zone. Touchdown, Brown! What a start in the IFL Cup! Huge high hop, and he just absolutely had a nose for the end zone down the wall.
The Oklahoma City Thunder might win their second straight NBA title. They might also need to trade for Giannis to stem the oncoming Wemby era. That from Dan Wolken, who joins us now, Yahoo Sports senior writer, friend of the show. All right, Dan, I spent plenty of time saying that all of this is just conjecture because we're bored. And now you've laid out a wildly interesting scenario to me that I think feels really sexy. Get me there. OKC, Giannis, why?
Well, I just have watched this series unfold, and while it does look like Oklahoma City is going to win, and they're probably going to win their second straight NBA title, look at the way these young Spurs in their first real playoff test have performed up to this point. Is Oklahoma City even going to be the favorite to win the title going into next year when you look at the trajectory of the Spurs team and where we think Wemby is going to go? And so if you're Oklahoma City coming out of this series, I think you have to look at the next 5 years and say, we have to optimize to play this Spurs team, to get through the Spurs team probably every year if we want to continue competing for titles. And I don't know if they can do that with their current roster construction. They're going to need more reinforcements to deal with this guy. And I think Giannis is probably the answer that makes the most sense.
I think that's what every team in the NBA, specifically in the West, is saying. Okay, what do we do to stop this otherworldly talent? So how could a Giannis and Chet Holmgren front court effectively, I mean, you're not going to stop Wemby, but at least slow him down?
Well, I think we've seen in this series, and really for the last couple years, that Chet Holmgren is not the best matchup against Wemby. He's just struggled with him in particular. And again, maybe things are going to change. They're going to be playing against each other for a long time to come. Maybe Chet gets in the gym and figures something out, changes his body. But as of right now, I don't think you want Chet Holmgren as your main Wemby stopper. I think he's going to need help. I think you're going to need to throw a lot of athletic bodies at this guy. And the bigger point about Oklahoma City here is that they sort of build, okay, we're going to pay Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, we're going to pay Chet, we're going to pay Jalen Williams, and then we're going to use these draft assets that we've compiled. They've got like 10 first-round picks coming up in the next few years, and we'll be able to supplement those guys with draft picks. We'll take some of our role players who are going to make too much money, replace them with younger players. Well, I'm not sure anymore that that's the right plan to deal with this Spurs team and what they're going to be over the next 3 to 4 years. So if I'm Oklahoma City, I'm now thinking, all right, can we trade some of those draft picks? Can we maybe get off the Jalen Williams contract and reconfigure this thing, get a little more size and athleticism in the front court? You know, and certainly you could look at Rudy Gobert. I mean, you could look at other people, but Giannis is out there and he's probably going to be traded. And you could probably get him for most of the assets that you already have without hurting the current team you've got too badly. I mean, to me, it's something, it's not the way they usually roll, but it's something that they're going to have to consider.
That's the interesting part about it, Dan. I think you've laid out a scenario where Milwaukee gets what they want. They get a ton of draft capital, right, which they can use to rebuild. That makes sense. It doesn't really tear much away from OKC. I just, like, in my head, I keep thinking of the Last Dance documentary where Jordan's sitting there saying, we kept losing to the Pistons, so I got in the gym for 3 months and I put on size because I knew I'd have to handle the physicality. Instead, this is like, well, we can't handle Wemby's size. So we went out and just traded for Giannis. Like, it feels weird, but I do buy it. Is it enough of a win for Milwaukee in return?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the proposed trades that are out there, and again, we're not privy to all the conversations that are going on behind the scenes, but you're talking about, Miami and some of the stuff they could put together. They couldn't hold a candle, to be honest, to the package of stuff that Oklahoma City could offer right now. Same goes for Golden State. I think same goes for pretty much every team that you hear about in this conversation. And I think the real difference from Oklahoma City's point of view is a year ago, you could have maybe looked at the Spurs, had half an eye on them and said, okay, in 3 or 4 years, maybe they'll be ready to compete with us. Well, this series has changed that. They're ready to compete right now. Probably not going to win this series, but by next year, the year after that, you could certainly see San Antonio passing them up. And I think that's the kind of thing that has to change the thinking in Oklahoma City, even if it would be really unconventional and probably controversial to start making trades if you've just won 2 straight titles.
We know that Sam Presti built this team, a modern dynasty or a growing dynasty in the NBA, because he traded Paul George to the Clippers, and that was all she wrote. SGA became a 2-time MVP. How big is the risk of, or how much should Sam Presti be concerned about repeating history, but being on the other side of it, and being the reason why Milwaukee builds the next dynasty in the NBA?
Well, the thing is, you assemble all of these assets and you make all the trades to get these draft picks to put yourself in a position like this, right? Nobody's good forever. Nobody can stay at the top year after year after year under this salary cap without suffering some pain somewhere along the way. And that pain is coming for Oklahoma City. Look at the expense of that roster coming up in the next 3 to 4 years. But the other side of that is you're in the championship window. You're here now. So if I'm Oklahoma City, I don't really care that much about what the NBA looks like in 6 or 7 years. If Milwaukee's great, so be it. Like, that's the way of the world. These assets move around. Somebody benefits, somebody loses. Oklahoma City was bad for a while. They assembled these assets to be where they are now. And at some point, they'll be bad again. That's just the way it goes. So if I'm Presti, and I'm certainly not saying I am as smart as him. He's done a great job building this roster, but I'm sure he understands that those draft picks are honestly not going to be a lot of use for them in the next short window of time here. They need to maximize what they have with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren and some of the pieces around them that are going to need raises soon, like Jared McCain's on a very cheap deal. If you want to keep him, you're going to have to pay up. Well, at that point, you've got to get ahead of this stuff and start moving the pieces around. And to me, put some of those assets out there, get Giannis in return, and then work backwards from there and try to win a couple more titles. I think that's the best you can do.
You just mentioned OKC was bad. Here's what I can't figure out, Dan. Does the fact that they were bad, and let's just say even worse than bad, they were irrelevant for several years after they got gutted, does that make them confident that they can go through it again and it's fine? Or does that make them hesitant to want to ever go through that again?
Well, I don't think anybody ever wants to be in a rebuilding situation or a tanking situation to the extent that the NBA is going to allow tanking to happen in the future. But it's just the way of the world. The salary cap has made it such that you can't really have 3 max contracts on your team without gutting your bench and your depth. So if that's the road you're going to go down, having your 3 max contracts be Shai, Chet, and Jalen Williams versus Shai, Chet, and Giannis, I mean, to me, I don't know. It's kind of a no-brainer.
So if Giannis does go to Oklahoma City, are the Thunder automatically the most hated team in the NBA? I mean, the big bad Thunder just got bigger and badder.
I mean, look at the discourse that came out of the game last night with the officiating, and we're seeing much more attention being paid to the way they're reffed, to the flopping. I mean, there was the one play that's going around on social media this morning where, Williams just kind of falls down, I think, and with just sort of a standard collision with Keldon Johnson. And they call Keldon Johnson for a foul, and there's clearly no foul there, right? So it's just an outgrowth of what people are seeing with their own eyes in the way this team is treated by officials. The perception is now hardened that they get favorable treatment, that they flop, that they embellish, that they're a bit of a soccer team out there on a basketball court. Like, these things are already baked in. So when you're already that hated, I don't know that it's going to make that much difference to get one more guy. We've seen these evil empires before, and as long as you're the one holding the trophy at the end of the day, who cares?
That means you've won a lot of basketball games. When everybody hates you, you've won a lot of basketball games. Everybody loves Wemby. And speaking of the Frenchman, we'll stick with France. Coming up, Wolken, we're going to make you sit with us for a minute because we got to get in to the French Open. We'll get caught up on the latest coming up next.
And the Jets with Darren Mucci as GM feel like they are figuring it out. Now, can Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, stay out of the way and let this thing progress? Is Aaron Glenn actually have the goods as head coach? I don't know that, but I think Geno Smith was a really sound signing, and I really do think, dodging lightning bolts here, the Jets could surprise people this year and be a lot better than the team you've been watching the last 15 years during this historic playoff drought.
How did you feel about his 2025? Do you think the hype is justified? Is he your number one guy right now?
I would feel comfortable putting him as QB1 right now. What I saw from Arch down the stretch, I just think that a lot of people stopped watching Arch in October and was like, this guy's not good. And they moved on.
They did.
And then we got to Florida. And then we got Tennessee. And we moved on and on and on. And he stacked games and he stacked games and he stacked games. I was texting a Southwest scout and I was like, fill in the blank. Arch Manning has the best pocket movement skills since, and he said Joe Burrow.
Should AJ Bonsa be a lock for the number one pick going to the Washington Wizards? What do you think, Chad?
He's been my favorite player to watch really all year. I love what AJ brings to the table and the upside. I think he's got the combination of a can't miss scorer who could just ultimately be, one of the elite top 5 players in the NBA. And I just don't think the Wizards take the risk. To me, he's the clear number one guy.
Second down and 7, 5 to play. DeLorean launches, far boards, got a man deep in the end zone, caught, touchdown! The Orlando Pirates take a big shot and cash in.
It was only a matter of time before he had the one-on-one situation, and he got a chance to show off that blazing speed.
Nyquan Murray continues a massive night.
Organizers of the French Open met with player representatives in Paris after the sport's top stars orchestrated a media protest. The primary cause for these, featuring world number one players, has been revenue sharing. So, Dan Wolken, we're making you work overtime. You're getting us caught up on everything. What are we doing here? What is this boycott? Why is it happening? What are they protesting?
So it's been bubbling for a little while now, and the basic point of it is players believe that they are not getting a big enough percentage of the revenues that these Grand Slams are making. And what they're hoping for is to get that share up to like 22%, which is where they are for the ATP tournaments on the regular tour. The slams are like 15% is what is being alleged. And so they want to close that gap. They're hoping that it benefits a lot of the lower ranked players. For a lot of players who lose in the first round of Grand Slam events, they're collecting roughly $100,000 in US dollars. And that represents maybe, half or more of their earnings for the year. If you're ranked outside the top 100, it's really hard to make a living playing professional tennis. So these Grand Slams are really important financially to a lot of players. I think most people would look at it and say, Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz wins the U.S. Open. They're going to make $4 million. That's enough money. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. But when you look at where a lot of sports are in revenue sharing, especially team sports in the U.S., it's always 50-50. They do get less money in tennis from the big events than maybe they should. And so it's really an interesting protest. The problem is, if you want to boycott something, if you want to protest and really have your voice heard, you have to be willing to sacrifice something. And that's where I think people have questions for these tennis players. Would you really be willing to sit out a Grand Slam to make your point on this?
And now to get to the tennis itself. No Carlos Alcaraz. He's dealing with a wrist injury. So is this Jannik Sinner's tournament to lose?
He is the biggest favorite to win a Grand Slam title on the men's side, I think, in the Open era. I believe he's even a bigger favorite to win this French Open than Nadal was at the peak of his powers at Roland Garros, and he won 14 of these things. And really, that's a commentary on two things. One is how well Jannik Sinner has played. He's been dominant since the Australian Open, which he lost in the semis to Djokovic. He's won 5 straight Masters 1000 level titles. I mean, it's absurd the way he's just rolled over everybody else in men's tennis the last few months. And it also reflects that the field is not very good. I mean, the third ranked guy who's the number 2 seed in this tournament, Alexander Zverev, never won a Grand Slam title. He's kind of choked it away every time he's gotten close. And then the next guy after that is Novak Djokovic, who's pushing 40 years old and is essentially a part-time tennis player at this point. So the field is, just to be fair, not very good. And that's a big part of why Jannik Sinner is such a heavy favorite to win this men's title.
All right, Dan, as a kid growing up in Vegas, we all worshiped Andre Agassi. Obviously, he meant everything coming from that town, right? But no American has made the final of this event since Andre did it in '99. Is there an American that can go on a deep run and sort of captivate our attention?
Yeah, clay's not really our thing in America. We don't grow up on the red clay. We don't really have it over here except for a few places. There's a training center in Orlando, but generally speaking, it's when these guys get on the ATP tour that they have their first real red clay experience. So it's tough, right? I will flag Lerner Tien, kid from California, and he's been an up-and-coming player on the ATP tour. He just won the title last week in Geneva, which was on red clay. It's kind of a warm-up event. He's coached by Michael Chang, who won the French Open in 1989. So even though he's kind of new to the surface, he's got a game style that really suits it well. He's very fast. He's not the biggest power player, but he constructs points tactically. He's kind of a genius. I think he could make a big impact. He's got a good draw. I won't be shocked if he's in the semifinals. Obviously, on the women's side, it's a different story. You've got Coco Gauff as the defending champion. But on the American side, Lerner Tien, to me, is really interesting. He's really fun to watch. If you haven't caught him yet, check him out at this tournament, because I think he's going to be in it for a while.
Dan, when I was 17, the most important thing in the world to me was what I was wearing to prom. But 17-year-old Moise Kwame, however, is a global tennis phenomenon. He became the youngest man at just 17 years old to win a slam match since 2009. So how for real is Moise Kwame?
Yeah, obviously in France, they're excited about him. They put him on the cover of L'Équipe today, which is the big sports newspaper in Paris. And certainly that was a big deal for him to win in the first round. He actually got a pretty good second round matchup as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the third round against Valentin Vachereau, who probably would take him out there. But big talent. I mean, a lot of people have talked about this kid for a while, but I will just pump the brakes slightly in that, a couple weeks ago, he was playing in a challenger level event, which is below the ATP tour, and got beat in straight sets by a guy who's ranked somewhere in the 400s in the world. Like he's lost a bunch of matches in the last couple months at a much lower level than this. So he's going to have to go through what all of these guys go through on the way up, which is winning ITFs, dominating the challengers, starting on the ATP tour and taking some lumps. And it can happen quickly. Like you can go through these steps in the matter of a year or a couple years if you're that good. Carlos Alcaraz did it. Sinner did it. But this guy's not ready to be at that level yet. All I'll say about him is he's a really promising talent, great athlete, big game, but he's got a long way to go, I think, before we're seeing him in the later stages of Grand Slams on a regular basis. The other thing is France has sort of had a history of overhyping some of their young tennis players. If you go back, years ago, whether it was Gael Monfils or some of these other guys that were they got that title of being a phenomenon, and they didn't quite pan out to be as great as everybody hoped. So that's tennis. Like people develop at different rates, but he's off to a good start, and it's exciting, especially for the people in Paris getting to watch him. That maybe, just maybe, they have kind of one of those next guys on the radar.
Dan, let's take a look at the women's side of this. What would prevent Coco from defending her title?
Inconsistency. She is just not a very consistent player. And, I'm obviously a big Coco fan, and I've seen her at her best, and she's an unbelievable athlete and competitor. She also has got some technical flaws in her game that rear their head at times. and her serve has been an issue the last couple years. She's worked hard on that. So she can get through to the later stages of tournaments on grit, on her competitiveness, which is just otherworldly. And if she's playing well, she can beat anybody in the tournament for sure. She's at the very top of the game, but she also can lose to a lot of people because she just does not always bring it. She does not always play well. And again, she's still young. Like when she's 27 and 28, I will expect her to be as consistent as Aryna Sabalenka is, but she's not there yet. Maybe she won't ever be. And she can win the title again, but she just hasn't played great the last couple months. So I don't think she's going to defend her title. I think she maybe gets to the quarters or even the semis, and that's it.
Just a reminder to everyone, Coco Gauff is 22 years old. Feels like
been
she
in our life
should be
already.
older. Yeah, exactly. It feels like she should be older since she's been on the global stage. It feels like seemingly forever, but she is still so young and has so much tennis ahead of her. But keeping that in mind, who has the best chance to challenge Coco Gauff?
Yeah, it's really interesting with this women's tournament because when you talk about the French Open the last several years, you automatically think Iga Swiatek. She won 4 out of 5 years at Roland Garros. Her game just is so well suited to that particular surface and the conditions you tend to get in Paris. But she has not won a tournament since Wimbledon last year, which was a huge surprise because she had never done anything on grass. She did not have a great clay season this year over in Europe. She has not won any tournament at all. So I don't know if she's the favorite. Sabalenka certainly is the best player in the world, but she's kind of come in off a couple shaky results in the last couple tournaments. So maybe she's not playing at her best. So it's a little bit open from that standpoint, but I'm really interested to watch Alina Svitolina come through this draw. She won the Italian Open right before the French Open a couple weeks ago. She is married to Gael Monfils, so she's a huge favorite in France. She is one of the rare players, and maybe the only player that I can think of, who is better after having a child than she was before. And before she was really good. She got up to number 3 in the world. But since taking that break to have her child, she's come back the last couple of years, and her game is just different. She's more aggressive. I think, has a higher upside against the best players. She's never been to a slam final, but she's been in the top 10 for so long that you kind of feel like at some point she's due to get there. The way she's playing, I kind of think this is Svitolina's tournament.
It's great stuff from you. You guys can follow him at Dan Wolken is how you get to him all across social media. Keep up with him. Doing great work covering everything for Yahoo Sports Daily. We really appreciate your time, your expertise, and your writing. It's always a joy to read. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
The other part of this, Caroline, too, is the weather. I know we're finally at that spot where it feels like the whole world is getting warmer. Mid-90s for the entirety of the tournament. So, when you talk about just getting the experience on clay, as Dan mentioned, not a lot of American courts practice on it, but you also think the way the heat radiates off of that, boy, it is going to be a sweaty, disastrous mess of grossness. But that also makes for entertaining tennis. I love anytime we can see somebody's conditioning challenged the way it will be challenged in this.
And that's kind of a chess piece that may come to fruition in this tournament. And also keep in mind, these sets can last 3-4 hours. These can go on for an extended period of time. So who can better fuel their bodies? To your point, who is better conditioned? Who can kind of stay mentally focused? Because we all know the heat can play tricks on your mind, especially when you're out there and the cameras are on you and you're feeling the pressure of this tournament. So I am grateful that I am someone who can sit and enjoy the heat and not have to play tennis in it. But it'll be a blast to watch.
It's funny because tennis has given us the phrase that we use in all sports when there are mistakes of unforced errors, and it comes for a reason, right? So you think about unforced errors, and I just immediately think about, to your point, the fatigue element, and not just the physical fatigue, but the mental fatigue, and then trying to find your normal when you're dealing with all of it. Certainly some of the best athletes in the world, they're prepared for it, but as sets wind down, it is going to be difficult. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. We'll keep an eye on it right here. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks so much for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back. See you at the end tomorrow.